Hello and welcome to Wehry Dads. I'm your host, PJ Wehry.
I'm your co-host, Dad. Today's episode is brought to you by the same bubbly that I drank in the last one because we're doing 2 podcasts in a row. So this is a little bit, I don't know, we're trying to save on the bubbly. And this one, again, is the raspberry. Not as good as the blackberry, but it's still good. Bubbly, if you want to get behind us. And also, we have a second sponsor.
Believe in the bubbly.
We actually have 3 sponsors today. It's not only Titleist, but FootJoy. FootJoy make a great
Now I'm just
golf.
confused.
Titleist and FootJoy make a great golf shoe, make good golf apparel. And then finally Fitbit, because we're not even really doing a podcast today. We've turned just into the QVC channel about Fitbit, all right? And the Fitbits are really good because they're not as expensive as the Apple Watch, but they keep track of your heart rate. Actually, my heart rate's, I'm dead. And it keeps track of your steps. It's just really a good thing to have. So get a Fitbit when you're golfing with your Titleist hat and your FootJoy on the side, and drink a bubbly. Have a great day.
Today's episode is about John Maxwell's The 360-Degree Leader. I know that for you, you have often reread John Maxwell. He's been provided a lot of inspiration for you.
A lot of good stuff John Maxwell does. Sometimes, careful, I love John Maxwell, repetitive. Let me say this about John Maxwell. Some people don't know this. He went to Circleville Bible College. Did you know that?
No, I've never even heard of Circleville.
Circleville Bible College, you have, because it's Ohio Christian, who we played, Ohio Christian. And that's, I believe, in Circleville, Ohio. Beautiful facilities.
I think I still don't remember that. Okay. Sorry.
I walked on the campus into the gym. Okay. And when I walked in, somebody said, "Man, what a beautiful facility." And I said, I bought it. I actually made that facility because I bought so many John Maxwell books. And Jackson Maxwell was obviously one of the biggest donors. So in some ways, I feel like I prepared my opponent for the game.
Yes, exactly. How generous.
That's how I roll.
So one of his more popular books, talk to us a little bit about what's the gist. What is the general idea?
So this book is the 360-Degree Leader, which deals with, and it's really interesting concept, that the guy that you're really trying to get the bubbly there with it, all right, deals with the concept that the most impactful person in an organization isn't always, and really isn't, the top guy. Because there's a layer in scenarios, like you have the top guy, and then you have, like in a school, you have the principal, then you have the students. Well, and you can even think about this, you didn't go hang out with the principal, right? But in between is the teachers. And it's imperative that the teachers have a heartbeat of the students and also have a vision and mission heartbeat of the principal, what everybody really wants to do, aka the board. And then that person in the middle, that 360-degree leader, impacts the students, impacts upstairs, and actually impacts other teachers. Maybe some, if that teacher is got more tenor, impacts the teachers that are a little bit, I don't want to use the word lower.
Junior?
Yeah, junior teachers, impacts other administrators. Yeah. And so the person in the middle, and I'm going to give you 2 illustrations of this.
Yeah.
When I was at Northland and I was the dean of students and the AD, one of the things I made sure I did is I kept really good communication lines upward.
Yeah.
Like to the people up. I wanted to know where we were going. Actually, they made some shift changes and so forth, and I was confused a bit. Man, that is dinging a lot. And that is not even, I don't think that's me. I don't know.
Yeah. Probably might be Becky Sue.
But anyhow, long story short is, I worked hard at building a relationship there. If anyone knows me, I've always been student oriented. I like the kids in a lot of ways.
Which is a real benefit to that job. Yeah.
Right. It really was. Even as the AD and stuff, as a teacher, I cared about the kids. Now, the other one is, and I had this happen, and I wish we could have him on sometimes. Pastor Michael Heelan was the principal at our Christian school in Hartford.
Yeah.
And he tells a story of the year that I was there which was 95, 96 was my last year. He said the year after you left, there was a huge gap that he figured out finally. And he said, Pete, it used to bother me. And this is what I would do, folks. Every day there was a study hall and there were juniors and seniors, and I would go sit with them. I was a youth pastor / AD / coach, but we had staff meetings on Thursday morning. Well, I would sit with these kids, and it's sitting with those kids, you'd find out, oh, this kid was going through this, or this family was going through this, or this family was having real issues, the husband and wife were, and that was now impacting how this kid was acting in school or responding in youth group, or why their parents weren't now part of the church. They were really struggling, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I sat with them, and he said it used to bother me because I said, doesn't he have work to do? And the truth was, I did have other stuff to do, and that would put more stress on me, but they were my work, knowing that. And he said,
well, it also saved work on
the back end, right? But the fact is, he said, we would go into staff meetings, and someone finally said, what's going on in the school? We don't even know.
Yeah.
And he said, oh my goodness, what's happened is coach was our conduit.
Yeah.
He would have it. And it wasn't like I came in and spilled guts about it. I just say, well, you could say that's going on, but let me tell you, this kid's really got stuff going on at home. Or his mom just found out that her parents have cancer, both of them. And I remember this going on, and she's trying to help them navigate that.
Yeah.
That's
why are they late? Why are they acting up
in class?
Great example of this. And I think there's just an overall principle of keeping communication lines open. Both ways, right?
Right.
We went through a period where I don't want to get into all the details. It's not entirely my story to tell, but there was some family stuff that was outside of our control, and it affected Finn personally. And it introduced some fear into his life. It was a big event. I think I can say is we had been fostering a baby, and we had to return the foster baby, and it really hurt him because he had grown attached to the baby. I think that's fair, right? He's 4 years old, right? And I think he was 5 at the time. And all of a sudden at school, I started getting reports that he was bullying another kid.
Wow.
And so I went, the teacher was like, hey, this is like, there's an ongoing pattern. It had happened like about 3 times. I'd already told him each time not to. So I went in and I talked to her. I was like, hey, this is going on with a foster baby. And so I just want you to know, like, that's why this has cropped up all of a sudden. And that's me paying enough attention to Finn to know that's what's happening, right? Like having enough understanding of him. And then I went back and I talked to him. I was like, you cannot do this. And so that was important, right? I cracked down hard. I'm like, you cannot hurt kids like this. But then I also said to him, like, but I know that you are scared right now. And I also want you to know that we are not going to give you back. You are our son. And so addressing and seeing, but also acting as that conduit is very in appropriate ways, right? We don't need gossip. This is the 360-degree leader. Seeing where your responsibilities are,
right?
You are opening lines of communication to solve issues, and that's acting with. I think the difference is that you are between the two parties that matter, right? Like it's not gossip if you're dealing with the two people who are actually in the situation.
And you're helping
not
them,
adding more
you're
people.
You're a buffer between the two,
right?
Trying to provide some oil between the friction, so that it will come to a point.
And the teacher was great, by the way.
Right.
She was like, "Oh, that makes sense." And I was like, "I'll talk to him." She's like, "Thank you."
But I think the biggest statement you said, and we're hearing this at our marriage retreat, and we're going to be there in 2 weeks, but we heard the guy speak at our ADs for Christ one, and he's speaking is that empathy to Finn meant the world to him. And empathy in relationships.
By the way, the bullying stopped after that third time talking to him.
Because the empathy was like, I recognize this now, which you probably don't recognize at first. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like we all have that tendency. I think it's imperative that we understand we have no matter what position we're in, we have a chance to help people on all spectrums. Those that we are we're serving with that are above us, serving with that are to our side, and those that we are serving that are below us. And notice this, that when somebody's below us, and I hate using that term, a student, Literally,
we're just talking about a flow chart.
Right. You really need to understand you're serving that young person.
Yeah.
Because we talk about servant leader, and the best 360-degree servant leader is that person that brings people together, that helps people grow, that cares about their heart, that listens to all the spectrum.
Yes.
And the impact of it. It's really a big deal.
And I think there's something really powerful about this idea that when we talk from even a communal standpoint, that everyone is working towards a stable community. We talked about this with how to negotiate, but for instance, when I'm working with clients, instead of one of the things that I quickly learned that was just very useful from a business side is I didn't give them everything. I gave them what was most important to let them hone down on their decisions, right? And just looking at things, it's like, if your boss is giving you something that actually hurts the clients, talking to your boss and trying to convince them, hey, if we do this, we'll promote a longer relationship with the client, right? We'll promote long-term stability and profitability. The profits might not be as big, the profit margin might not be as big if we, use better materials or whatever else, but they will come back, right? And that's like kind of what we've done with our business is that if we failed, we gave money back, right? Because we wanted to make sure that we created something long-term, not rip people off and run.
Yeah.
And so it's about those relationships. And that's, and that can be, this is 360, right? So it could be horizontal, it can be vertical. And you have all those moments where you look at things and you're like, okay, I have influence on every single person I touch, whether they're above me, below me, or to the side of me. And that, I think, that realization of when you talk about leadership as just influence, which I think, I don't want to water down leadership too much, but I think there is that idea of like your influence matters. Wherever you are in that flow chart, you have that kind of impact.
No question. And I love what you're saying. And, you said, vertical, horizontal, and obviously diagonal. I mean, like there's
right.
But there's all these relationships.
Yeah.
And I just saw something on Twitter that just was unbelievable. There was a little boy. So he's a rugby player when he's with his coach, and he's overwhelmed. And his friend comes up to him and he said, "I'm too young. I'm the youngest player on this team. I'm too small." And he goes, No. And he said, "I'm smaller than you." He goes, "You are an unbelievable rugby player. You're insanely good. You're not too short. You're not too tall. You're not too small. You can do this. You are the best. Give me a hug." And he hugged his teammate. And it was like, I showed Mom and another friend of ours. I was like, this was a player on a team that was, and the coach was smart enough to stay out of it. Let the kid talk. Right. Like his own teammate, who they had to be 14, 15, right?
Yeah.
Right. It was literally captivating.
Yeah.
That was using a sphere of influence. That young player impacted the coach. He impacted the player. He impacted the whole team, 360 degrees, everybody. And by the way, there's death and life in the power of the tongue. He spoke life. And, very frankly, folks, as you're out there, I don't care what layer you are in work. You might say, I have no responsibility. It goes back to kind of what we talked in previous ones. I lay brick. I'm building a church. Yes. I'm building the house of God. It's like how you look at what you do.
Yeah.
And very frankly, no matter what I do, you said, I don't want to limit it to this. I get that. And it's true. Yeah. But I want to leave a sphere of powerful influence, preferably for the kingdom of God.
Yeah. So I think as a man, as I look at this, I think kind of piggybacking off that Twitter video you saw, power of saying thank you. And saying thank you to the horizontal.
Thank you. I love you.
Yeah.
I care about you.
Well, I was, the example I was going to use, I was going to say, I was talking about like bosses or mentors. Obviously I'll say I love you to you. Deborah Benton has been a great mentor. I'd probably just say thank you.
You could say,
yes. Yeah.
Deborah, I thank you. And I can't tell you how much this means to me.
Yes.
And I deeply care about what you're doing for me.
Yes. And that's like,
I just had a conversation with a former player, and I said, hey, man, I just want you to know I love you. He goes, Coach, I love you too.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you're right. Ladies, you got to handle it different. Like,
yeah.
I just want you to know I love you.
Also, if you don't know the guy very well, like,
there's so many things. But if you're going to have a sphere of influence, man, I care.
Life and death in the power of the tongue. And I need to remember that. What I say to my sons matters. What I say to my wife matters. What I say to those in authority over me, who are often very lonely because they are in a position of authority.
They're on an island at times.
That makes a huge difference for them.
So let's look at this table, right? We're sitting at this table. You got the cameras on us.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about my son, PJ, and his wife, Becky, is they have a sphere of influence. And folks, you don't know this, but it's 50 feet out there in our neighborhood. They care about our neighbors. They are out in the neighborhood, addressing people, inviting people, exhorting people, encouraging people. Okay, stay with me now. Like 50 feet out, they jump on the golf cart. They'll take their boys to the pool. But that time at the pool is not only for refreshment for their boys and some exercise. That is really important. But they also take that time to invest in the neighbors, in our community. And I will tell you, this is why this is a really good principle. Wherever you are, be a good one. Right? That's simplistic.
Be where you are and be a good one.
Be a good one. Like, I'm going to be the best I can be in our church. We've only been here less than a year. We are already being encouraged to join a Bible study.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, without bragging on this, it's just, I see one of the strengths our family has is we speak life into people. And they're like, hey man, we'd love for you to join our Bible study. And I don't mean that about me. My wife does it. Anybody who knows my wife, she speaks truth and kindness and life into people.
Yeah. As I look at the husband side of it, it kind of it connects just what you're saying as well. Everything you just said, when you look at this 360 degree, we tend to think of like our main responsibilities, our big rocks. And I think there's a lot to be said for your manner and just recognizing that all the little interactions matter. The way you say things, the way that you do things, and even those things that aren't your major responsibilities. And that, there's some health, there's like, you have to be careful because you don't want to be a people pleaser. But one thing as a pastor's kid, I was taught to do, and I'm grateful for this, is I was taught to welcome people into the group, right? I was taught to say hi to people. And I can't tell you what a difference it makes.
You're really
just
good
going
at
around.
It by now. I mean, you really do it to everybody.
Yeah, I see people, I say hi. I smile at people as I go by. Very Midwestern, right? Like, I mean, it depends on your culture. Yep. Like New York, that could get you beat up if you're in the wrong name.
You know, it's funny. You do that, people in New York, they laugh. And
yeah. Just smile. Yeah, say, yeah. Right. You always have to judge those
Read
things.
the room.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's same thing like with the I love you. Very important phrase. Use judiciously. Same thing. Smile. Don't be like, if you want to have friends, show yourself friendly.
Yeah. And that's
important.
Again, that's influence. Let me say this. You probably can recognize this. Your mom and I both had roles in parenting.
Yeah.
And, there were times that, obviously the husband-wife dynamic, but we did this together. But there were some times where mom would get black and white and she'd be like making a decision, and I would, especially you would roll with it a little bit better, but Drew would be like, and I would look at her, and we had a couple code things that we would do that she knew to back off. There were times where I was not happy and she would look at me and give me this look like, you're not in a spirit right now. So stop. That's leadership in the home too. And the husband, wife as a husband.
Yes.
And that also correlates obviously to, as a dad.
Yes.
Like there's a team working here. And by the way, sometimes how I'm coming across may not be seen by me.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And how mom was coming across. Goes back to what
you said about listening.
Yeah. It's really good. So I think this is a great principle, folks. If you're in the middle, okay, you think, I need to be at the top. I'll say this. So we talked about the roles of man, husband, as a dad. I will tell you this. When I look back now, I think I was a better assistant coach than a head coach because I had empathy and so forth. And sometimes as a head coach, you got to draw a line. And that's probably not my strength. And I was able to, I felt like read people and love on people. And I could look at a coach, and I don't know why, but I wasn't afraid to say, hey, this guy, now if the coach was willing to listen. And you know, it's not that I didn't, as a head coach, have some, whatever success, whatever those terms are. Mm-hmm. But I really look at it and go, man, I loved being an assistant, like listening to kids and getting them to talk about things other than basketball, real stuff. And that's probably why I do what I do. Yeah. So
I love it. And I love seeing you do what you love to do.
When I do what I do.
Hey, appreciate you. Love you.
This has been great. Thank you, PJ. Love you.